the man who has the fewest needs is closest to the gods. These words from Diogenes have echoed for over 2,000 years, but they've never made as much sense as they do now. We live surrounded by things that promise to complete us, but leave us empty. We buy, we accumulate, we worry, and yet we still feel like something's missing. The philosopher who lived in a barrel on the streets of Athens discovered a secret that our modern world has forgotten. The less you need, the freer you become. Diogenes of Sinope wasn't an ordinary man. He rejected everything society considered important and lived with only the essentials. No house, no possessions, no status. And yet, he was freer than kings and emperors. His radical philosophy challenges every message we receive every day about what we need to be happy. And maybe that's exactly what we need to hear right now. The question he left us is simple, but revolutionary. What if the key to happiness isn't having more, but needing less? Let's explore why abandoning excess might be the wisest decision of your life. The philosopher was born into a wealthy family, but chose to live like a beggar. This wasn't a tragedy, it was a conscious decision. He studied philosophy and concluded that most of our worries come from things we don't need. So he tested his theory in the most radical way possible. He threw everything away. His home became a large ceramic barrel in the public square. His clothing was a worn-out cloak. His food was whatever he could beg for or find. People laughed at him. They called him crazy, a bum, a disgrace to society. But that didn't matter. He knew something they didn't know. Everything you own also owns you. Every object in your house demands maintenance, cleaning, protection, worry. Every social commitment drains your energy. Every expectation from society is an invisible chain tying you to a life that might not even be yours. The most famous story about the philosopher perfectly illustrates his philosophy. Alexander the Great, the most powerful man in the known world, came to visit him. Alexander was impressed by this man who feared nothing and wanted nothing. Surrounded by his generals and soldiers, he asked, "You can ask me for anything. I am Alexander the Great, and I have the power to give you whatever you want." The answer was simple. Yes, you can get out of my sunlight. That moment changed Alexander forever. The conqueror realized he had nothing the philosopher desired. Gold, power, fame, lands, armies. None of it had value to a man who already had enough. Alexander would have given entire kingdoms, but all that was desired was something nobody could sell: freedom. Later, Alexander said, "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." The man who had everything envied the man who had nothing. This inversion of values shows us something profound. We measure wealth by the amount of things we possess, but the philosopher measured wealth by the amount of things he didn't need. Every time he eliminated a need, he became richer. Every abandoned desire was a victory. While people worked for years to buy a bigger house, he was already free. Now, look at your own life. How many hours do you work per week? And of those hours, how many are to pay for things you actually need? Probably most of your work pays for excesses. The house bigger than necessary, the car newer than sufficient, the clothes you wear once, the subscriptions you forget about, the objects that stay stored in closets. If you cut half of your expenses, you could work half the time. But we remain trapped because we confuse desires with needs. The philosopher had a simple test for everything. Does this make me more free or less free? If the answer was less free, he didn't want it. He carried a wooden bowl to drink water. One day, he saw a child drinking water using only their hands. He immediately threw the bowl away, saying, "A child has bested me in simplicity." Even that small possession was excess. He could live without it, so why carry it? Try doing this test with your belongings. Pick any object in your house and ask, does this make me more free or less free? That exercise equipment that became a coat rack, does it free you or does it accuse you every time you walk past it? Those expensive clothes in the closet that you're afraid to wear, do they give you joy or anxiety? That car that demands high payments, does it take you where you want to go or does it trap you in a job you hate? The truth is harsh. Most of our possessions don't serve us, We serve them. We work to buy them. We worry about maintaining them. We stress about protecting them. And we feel guilty for not using them. We become employees of our own objects. The philosopher reversed this logic. He had nothing that could enslave him. But excess goes far beyond physical objects. We live in an era of informational excess that thinker could never have imagined. Your mind is being constantly bombarded. Notifications on your phone, messages on 5 different apps, news of tragedies from around the world, opinions from millions of people, endless videos, advertisements calculated to manipulate your desires. Your brain wasn't made to process this volume of information. The philosopher lived in a public square, but had more mental peace than you do in your quiet room with your phone in hand. Why? Because he filtered everything. He didn't care about gossip, city politics, other people's opinions, or what was trendy. He focused only on the essential, living well, thinking clearly, being free. Everything that didn't contribute to this was noise, and he simply ignored it. You can apply this principle today. How many apps do you actually need on your phone? How many message groups add value to your life? How much news do you consume that doesn't change anything in your reality? How many hours of social media improve your day? With every unnecessary piece of information that enters, a piece of your attention is stolen. And attention is life. Spending attention on informational excess is literally spending your life on things that don't matter. Do a digital cleanse like the philosopher would. Delete apps you haven't used in the last month. Leave groups that only bring negativity. Cancel content subscriptions you don't consume. Turn off notifications that interrupt your focus. In 1 week, you'll feel your mind lighter. In 1 month, you'll wonder how you managed to live in that chaos before. Another excess we carry is the weight of social expectations. Society tells you how you should live. Get married at a certain age, buy a house, have a car, climb the career ladder, impress the neighbors, keep up appearances. The thinker looked at these rules and laughed. He did exactly the opposite of what was expected, not out of childish rebellion, but because he realized these expectations were voluntary prisons. People at the time said, "You need a real house." He would respond, "Why? This barrel protects me from rain and cold. A bigger house would only give me more walls to clean and more space to accumulate useless things." When they said, "You need a respectable job," he would respond, "What for? To buy things I don't need and impress people I don't respect?" Every social expectation you accept without questioning becomes an obligation, and obligations limit your freedom. Do you really want that expensive wedding that will leave you in debt, or is it because everyone expects it? Do you really need that higher position with more responsibilities, or is it because society says you should always want more? Do you really desire that big house in a fancy neighborhood, or is it because your colleagues will judge you if you choose something smaller and cheaper? Cynic philosophy teaches us that courage isn't facing an army. Courage is living your way when everyone expects you to live another way. It's saying no to the rat race even when they call you lazy. It's choosing free time instead of a higher salary even when they call you complacent. It's preferring a simple life even when they call you a failure. People will judge. Let them judge. They're trapped in the same chains you're breaking. The crucial question is, are you living your life or the life expected of you? Because the second option is a very heavy kind of excess. It's carrying dreams that aren't yours, goals you didn't choose, and a version of yourself that's just a performance. The philosopher removed that mask. He was exactly who he was, without filters, without performances, without adapting. And that horrified people, because they lived trapped in their own masks. There's one more type of excess nobody talks about: excess comfort. Our generation avoids any discomfort like it's poison. Too hot? Turn on the air conditioning. Too cold? Turn up the heater. Hungry? Order food in 5 minutes. Bored? Grab your phone. Lonely? Open a social network. We've built a life where we never need to endure anything, and that has made us weak. The thinker did the opposite on purpose. In winter, he would embrace statues covered in snow to train his body to withstand the cold. In summer, he walked barefoot on hot sand, When he was hungry, he would wait a little longer before eating. It wasn't masochism, it was training. He knew that an easy life creates fragile people, and he wanted to be strong enough to need nothing. Think about how you react to the slightest discomfort. How much of your life is structured to avoid any difficulty? You can't sleep without the room at the perfect temperature. You can't work without your specific coffee. You can't go without entertainment for 10 minutes. Every comfort that becomes indispensable is one more weakness. One more thing that can be taken from you, leaving you lost. That man, with nothing, was invincible. Nobody could threaten him because he had nothing to lose. Nobody could buy him because he wanted nothing. Nobody could frighten him because he already lived with less than most people consider the minimum. He transformed his apparent fragility into absolute strength. While the rich trembled with fear of losing their fortunes, he slept peacefully in his barrel. You don't need to embrace frozen statues, but you can start small. Take a cold shower once a week. Fast until lunch from time to time. Turn off the air conditioning and endure the heat. Leave your phone at home during a walk. Each small voluntary discomfort strengthens you. It reminds you that you can endure more than you think. It prepares you for when life inevitably brings discomforts you didn't choose. Now let's talk about something that hurts. Excessive relationships. The philosopher had few friends, but they were true ones. He didn't waste time with fake people or empty conversations. If someone didn't add anything genuine to his life, he simply didn't keep in touch. This may sound cruel, but it's liberating. How many relationships in your life are dead weight? Friendships that drain your energy but never support you back. Toxic family members who criticize your every choice. Colleagues who only talk about other people's lives. Acquaintances you maintain out of social obligation. Every false or negative relationship you maintain steals time and energy from true relationships. It's relational excess, and it makes you sick. The thinker had no patience for this. If someone was a hypocrite, he would point it out to their face. If someone was annoying, he would turn his back and leave. If someone didn't contribute to his philosophy of life, he didn't pretend interest. It seems rude, but observe, he had peace. He didn't have unnecessary drama, gossip, betrayals, or disappointments with people he should never have let into his life. You have permission to cut people from your life. You don't need a dramatic reason. Incompatibility of values is enough. Constant negative energy is enough. Lack of reciprocity is enough. Your life isn't a shelter for those who don't deserve to be in it. Every person you remove who was harming you creates space for people who will do you good, or for something even better. Peace and silence. Another crucial point is excess ambition. Society sells you the idea that you always need to want more. More money, more recognition, more status, more achievements. It's never enough. You reach a goal and you should already be aiming for the next one. It's a race without a finish line, and you're killing yourself running. The philosopher had no ambitions of the common type. He didn't want to be famous, although he became famous. He didn't want to be respected, although philosophers respected him. He didn't want wealth, power, or legacy. His only ambition was to live well today. Wake up, have enough to eat, think, talk, observe the world, sleep, repeat. That was a complete life for him. Compare that with your reality. You're always chasing the next step, the next promotion, the next raise, the next level. And when you get there, you realize nothing changed. You didn't become happier. You just got new pressures, new goals, new reasons for anxiety. Because happiness doesn't come from future achievements. It comes from present contentment. And contentment comes from wanting less, not from having more. This doesn't mean lack of purpose or laziness. It means choosing ambitions that truly matter to you, not ones that were put in your head by society. The thinker was extremely disciplined. He woke up early, studied, debated, taught, exercised. But he did this by choice, not by external pressure. His goals were internal, to be wiser, stronger, freer. Not external, to be richer, more famous, more admired. Define enough for yourself. How much money is really necessary to live well? not to impress anyone, but to have basic comfort and security. How much recognition do you really need? Not to feed your ego, but to feel that your work has value. When you define enough, you can stop running. You can look around and realize you've already arrived. And that realization is liberating. One of the most courageous aspects of that man was his willingness to be ridiculed. People laughed at him every day. They made jokes, insulted him, called him crazy. Children threw stones at him. Adults spat when they passed by. He was the city's involuntary clown, and he simply didn't care. Why? Because other people's opinions were one more excess he had abandoned. Think about how much of your life is governed by fear of others' judgment. You don't wear that outfit because they might find it strange. You don't follow that dream because they might think it's silly. You don't live more simply because they might think you failed. Social pressure is invisible but suffocating. You're trapped in a prison made of looks and comments from people who don't even know your story. The philosopher broke that prison. When they laughed at him, he laughed along. When they insulted him, he made jokes about himself. When they tried to humiliate him, he showed he was already beyond humiliation. Nothing they said could hurt him because he didn't derive his value from others' opinions. His value came from living according to his principles, and nobody could take that from him. You need that same courage. There will be people who won't understand when you start living with less. They'll ask why you don't want to move up in the company, why you're living in a smaller place, why you don't buy new things, why you seem satisfied with less. Let them talk. They're trapped in the rat race and don't understand that you've left it. The freedom you're gaining will look like failure to those who are still trapped. There's a hard truth that needs to be said. Your time is running out, not in a dramatic way, but literally. You have a finite number of days, hours, minutes. Every second that passes never comes back, and you're spending this resource more precious than gold on excesses. Excess work to pay for excess things that demand excess time to maintain. The thinker understood this with brutal clarity. He had no patience to waste time on nonsense because time is life. When someone invited him to a boring party, he refused. When someone wanted to discuss superficial topics, he left. When something had no real purpose, he didn't participate. Not out of arrogance, but out of respect for time. His time and others' time. Do a brutal audit of your time. How many hours per week do you spend on things that don't matter? Empty social media, shows you're not even enjoying, meetings that could be emails, tasks you do just to look busy, social commitments that are obligations and not pleasure. Add it all up. Now multiply by 52 weeks. That's the time you're throwing away every year. Cynic philosophy would tell you, cut everything that's not essential. Be brutal. You have permission to say no, to cancel plans, to not watch that show everyone's watching, to not go to that event, to not take that meeting. Your time is your most valuable asset, and you're giving it away for free to things that don't deserve it. Stop. Another powerful teaching comes from nature. The philosopher observed animals and noticed how they lived with only what was necessary. A dog doesn't worry about status. A bird doesn't accumulate more than it needs. A tree doesn't try to impress other trees. They exist in a simple way, following their nature, and they're perfect like that. We humans complicate everything. We create artificial needs. We invent problems to sell solutions. We build an entire society based on making you feel like something's always missing. And then we spend our lives chasing things our nature doesn't even ask for. The thinker would look at a dog and think, he has everything he needs. Food, water, basic shelter, a few moments of joy. Why would I need more? Of course, we're more complex than animals. We have emotional, intellectual, social needs. But the principle remains. Most of what we pursue isn't real need, it's manufactured desire. You don't need new clothes every season. You need clothes that protect you and fit well. You don't need the latest phone. You need a phone that works. You don't need a magazine-worthy house. You need a safe and comfortable place. Everything beyond that is excess. Reconnect with your real needs. Take a day to observe what your body, mind, and heart actually ask for. They'll probably ask for simple things. Good food, but it doesn't need to be expensive. Rest, but it doesn't need to be at a luxury resort. Connection, but it doesn't need to be with hundreds of people. Purpose, but it doesn't need to come with a six-figure salary. When you remove the layers of excess, the essential appears. And the essential is always simpler than you imagine. Let's now move to something practical you can do immediately. Ancient philosophy left us with an implicit challenge. Live 1 month eliminating excesses and see what happens. You don't need to live in a barrel, but you can start by identifying one area of your life that's overloaded. Maybe it's your material consumption. Maybe it's your digital consumption. Maybe it's your social calendar. Choose one and do a deep cleanse for 30 days. If you choose material consumption, the rule is simple. Don't buy anything that isn't absolutely necessary for a month. No new clothes because they were on sale. No decorative objects because they'd look nice. No electronics because they launched the new version. Only the essentials. Food, hygiene products, basic bills. Everything beyond that is forbidden. The first few days will hurt. You'll feel the urge. But in the second week, something interesting happens. You realize you weren't missing anything. If you choose digital consumption, delete all social media apps from your phone for a month. Don't cheat by using the browser. No Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, nothing. If you need to check something specific, use a computer once a week. Observe how your mind calms down, how you have more time, how you stop comparing your life with others, how you start paying attention to the real world again. And in that time, you can read books, which, by the way, in the first pinned comment, I left something special for you. If you choose your social calendar, cancel all non-essential commitments for a month. No parties out of obligation, no dinners with people you don't like, no forced networking events. Keep only the meetings that truly give you joy. Use the free time to be alone, think, read, walk. Discover that solitude isn't loneliness when you're in good company with yourself. At the end of the 30 days, evaluate. What did you really miss? Probably much less than you imagine. And the things you missed are the ones that truly matter. Keep those. Everything else was excess, and you just proved to yourself that you can live without it. Now you have a conscious choice. Go back to the excesses or continue being free. One of the deepest lessons of Cynic philosophy is that freedom and necessity are inversely proportional. The more you need, the less free you are. Every need is a rope tying you down. You need money, so you need to work. You need to keep up appearances, so you need to spend. You need approval, so you need to conform. Every "I need" is an "I must," and every "I must" steals your freedom. The thinker cut those ropes one by one until he was completely free. He needed almost nothing, so almost nothing controlled his life. He could spend the whole day philosophizing because he didn't need to work 8 hours. He could say what he thought because he didn't need social approval. He could leave the city at any moment because he had no possessions to carry or obligations to fulfill. Total freedom. You may not want or be able to reach that extreme level, but you can move in that direction. Every need you eliminate gives you a piece of freedom back. Pay off the house and eliminate rent. More freedom. Sell the car and use public transportation. More freedom. Cancel subscriptions you don't use. More freedom. Reduce your cost of living by half. Now you need to work half the time. That's literally buying your life back. Think of it this way. You sell hours of your life in exchange for money. Then you use that money to buy things. Essentially, you're trading life for objects. Every object in your house represents hours you worked. Hours you'll never get back. Now look around. Are these objects worth your life? Because it was your life you spent on them. The philosopher looked at the work-money things exchange and saw a giant fraud. People were selling years of their lives to accumulate things they didn't need, to impress people they didn't know, following rules they didn't choose. And they thought that was living. He refused the whole deal. he decided his life wasn't for sale. And he discovered that when you don't sell your life, you can truly live. There's a modern concept that Cynic philosophy practiced without knowing it: minimalism. But it wasn't minimalism for aesthetics or fashion. It was minimalism for philosophy. Every object you own costs more than its price. It costs mental space, because you need to remember it, decide where to store it, keep it organized. It costs physical energy, because you need to clean, maintain, protect it. It costs ongoing money, because many things require maintenance. And it costs freedom, because you can't simply leave and live somewhere else when you're carrying all of this. That thinker's minimalism was radical. He had a cloak, a bowl that he later threw away, and a staff. That was everything. He could literally get up and go anywhere in 2 minutes. No packing, no planning a move, no hiring a truck. He was totally mobile, totally free. You don't need to reach that extreme, but understand the principle. Everything you have is a weight, and you're carrying much more weight than you imagine. Do this exercise. Pick an object of yours and ask, if my house caught fire and I could only save the essentials, would I save this? If the answer is no, why are you spending space, money, and energy keeping that object? Do this with every item in your house. You'll probably discover that you wouldn't save half of your things. So, why are they still there? Philosophy would tell you, if you wouldn't save it from a burning house, throw it away now. Donate it, sell it, discard it. Every object that leaves is one less weight. And when you remove the physical weight, something interesting happens. The mental weight also goes away. You breathe easier, your space feels lighter, your mind becomes clearer. You spent years accumulating, now you'll spend a few months eliminating. And you'll feel richer at the end than when you had everything. Let's talk about a subtle but poisonous excess: constant comparison. The thinker didn't compare his life with anyone. He didn't look at the rich and envy them. He didn't look at other philosophers and compete. He didn't look at anyone trying to measure if he was better or worse. He lived his life, period, and that's rare. Today you're being bombarded with edited versions of other people's lives. Social media shows only the good moments. Nobody posts pictures of tiredness, debt, fights, frustration. You only see vacations, achievements, happiness, and you compare that with your complete real life, with all its problems. Obviously, you come out losing, but the comparison is unfair from the start. You're comparing the backstage of your life with others' highlight reel. The philosopher didn't have this problem. Social media didn't exist, but the same pressure existed. People displayed their big houses, their expensive clothes, their elaborate dinners, and he simply didn't participate in the game. He wasn't competing. He established his own criteria for success: freedom, wisdom, tranquility. And by those criteria, he was winning. While the rich were stressed, indebted, worried, he was at peace. You need to define your own criteria too. Stop measuring your life using other people's ruler. If you value time with family, but you're chasing promotions that give you less time, you're using the wrong ruler. If you value peace, but you're accumulating things that bring stress, you're using the wrong ruler. If you value authenticity, but you're living to please others, you're using the wrong ruler. Create your criteria. Write down what truly matters to you, not what should matter, not what your parents want, not what society approves, what you, deep down, value. Maybe it's creativity, maybe it's learning, maybe it's adventure, maybe it's tranquility. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's truly yours. Then organize your life around that. Cut everything that doesn't serve those values. That's what the philosopher did, and that's what you can do. Another crucial point. Philosophy understood that too much comfort weakens, but too much discomfort destroys. The goal isn't to suffer for suffering's sake. The goal is to build enough resistance so that small discomforts don't dominate you. It's the difference between training and torture. The thinker exposed himself to cold, but didn't freeze until he got sick. He fasted sometimes, but didn't experience extreme hunger. It was calculated discomfort to strengthen, not to destroy. Apply this to your life. You don't need to become an ascetic. You just need to add small, voluntary discomforts that remind you that you're stronger than you think. Cold shower in the morning, intermittent fasting once a week, long walk without your phone, sleeping without air conditioning once in a while, carrying your groceries instead of using the car. These are small resilience training sessions. Why does this matter? Because life will bring discomforts you didn't choose. Illnesses, losses, crises, disappointments. If you've spent years avoiding any discomfort, when the inevitable arrives, you'll break. But if you've trained, if you know you can endure difficult things, you'll get through. The philosopher was prepared for anything because he already lived with almost nothing. Nothing that life took from him could break his spirit. Now let's move to one of the most liberating teachings. You owe nobody anything. Society tries to convince you otherwise. You owe your parents to live the way they want. You owe your colleagues to maintain their standard. You owe society to follow its rules. The thinker looked at that imaginary debt and tore up the contract. He owed nobody anything. This doesn't mean being selfish or cruel. It means recognizing that your life is yours. You didn't ask to be born with predetermined obligations. You can choose your own obligations. You can choose to help people you love. You can choose to contribute to causes you believe in, but by choice, not by debt. The difference is enormous. When you do something by choice, it comes from love. When you do it from debt, it comes from guilt. And guilt is terrible fuel for life. How many things do you do out of guilt? Visit relatives who treat you badly because it's family. Maintain friendships that drain you because there's history. Work in a career you hate because you've already invested so much time. All of these are imaginary debts. You're free to leave. You don't need permission. You don't need an elaborate justification. Your life, your rules. The philosopher left home, left his family, abandoned a potential career, and never looked back. Not because he hated anyone, but because that path wasn't his. He didn't owe his life to others' expectations. And neither do you. If something in your life only continues out of guilt, it's time to reconsider. Guilt is one more excess that needs to be abandoned. There's a story that perfectly summarizes this philosophy. One day, the thinker was begging for alms to eat. A rich man passed by and said, "If you learn to flatter the king, you wouldn't need to eat lentils." The response was immediate. If you learn to eat lentils, you wouldn't need to flatter the king. That exchange shows everything. The rich man had more money, but he was a slave to the need to maintain his status, to please powerful people, to keep up appearances. The philosopher ate simple food, but he was free to say what he thought, to live how he wanted, to not bow to anyone. Who was truly rich? The man with gold or the man with freedom? This story forces you to question, what are you doing that's equivalent to flattering the king? What small humiliations do you accept to maintain your standard of living? What parts of yourself do you hide to not lose opportunities? What principles do you bend to not create problems? All of this is flattery, and you do it because you need to. Because your needs enslave you. The choice was for lentils and freedom. You can choose something between the extremes. You don't need to live in a barrel and beg for food, but you can reduce your needs enough to not need to flatter any king, to not swallow insults at work, to not accept disrespect in relationships, to not live a life that isn't yours. When you need less, you tolerate less, and that is power. Another powerful teaching. The thinker wasn't afraid of death, and not being afraid of death frees you to truly live. When someone asked how he wanted to be buried, he said, "Throw my body away, let the animals eat it." People were horrified, but he explained, "Why should I care? I'll be dead. I won't feel anything. My body isn't me." This perspective changes everything. If you truly understand that you're going to die, that it's certain, that it could be tomorrow or in 50 years, but it will happen, you stop wasting life. You stop postponing. You stop living to impress people at a funeral. You stop accumulating things that will be left behind. You start living now. The philosopher lived each day fully because he knew it could be his last. Not in an anxious way, but in a conscious way. He didn't postpone happiness for when he had more money. He didn't postpone wisdom for when he had more time. He didn't postpone life for later. He lived now with what he had, which was almost nothing, and it was enough. What are you postponing? Trip you want to take when you have money. Book you want to write when you have time. Change you want to make when the time is right. Relationship you want to fix eventually. All of these are illusions. There's no perfect moment. There's now or there's never. Philosophy would tell you, do it now with what you have, or admit you'll never do it. Death is the great remover of excesses. When you truly face your mortality, you realize that half of your worries are nonsense. You stop stressing about others' opinions because those people will also die. You stop accumulating things because you can't take anything with you. You stop postponing life because there are no guarantees. Awareness of death forces you to prioritize, and prioritizing is abandoning excesses. Let's close with the most important thing. This lesson isn't about poverty, it's about freedom. The teaching didn't preach that you should be miserable. It preached that you should question every layer of excess between you and your freedom. Every possession, every obligation, every expectation, every desire. Ask, does this free me or does it trap me? Most things trap you, and you know this. You feel the weight, the anxiety about money, the stress of keeping up appearances, the exhaustion of working too much, the loneliness in the midst of people, the feeling of living someone else's life. All of this is a symptom of excess. Excess worries about things that don't matter and lack of focus on what does matter. This philosophy lived over 2,000 years ago, but its message has never been more urgent. We live in the era of maximum excess. Excess information, options, entertainment, objects, debts, obligations. And we're drowning in it. Depression, anxiety, burnout, existential emptiness. All these modern epidemics are rooted in excess. We're trying to carry more than any human being was made to carry. The solution isn't to add more. More therapy, more medications, more productivity techniques, more self-help courses. The solution is to remove, cut, eliminate, abandon. Return to the essential. Discover what truly matters and build life around that. Throw the rest away. Philosophy did this in an extreme way, but the principle applies at any level. You don't need to live in a barrel, but you can have a smaller house. You don't need to beg for food, but you can cook instead of ordering delivery every day. You don't need to throw your phone away, but you can delete social media. You don't need to quit your job, but you can stop chasing promotions you don't want. You don't need to cut off your entire family, but you can establish healthy boundaries. You don't need to become an ascetic, but you can start by removing one excess per week. Each small removal gives you a piece of freedom back. And freedom accumulates. At first, you'll miss it. It'll be difficult. Your brain will scream that you need that thing. But that's just withdrawal. Withdrawal from excess. Endure a few weeks and it'll pass. And on the other side, there's clarity. There's peace. There's time. There's real life. The philosopher proved it's possible. He lived happily with almost nothing. If he could do it, you can certainly live well with less than you have now. The question isn't whether you can. The question is whether you have the courage. Courage to live differently. Courage to be judged. Courage to abandon false security in exchange for real freedom. Courage to look at your life and admit that half of it is excess that imprisons you. The good news is, you don't need courage for everything all at once. You need courage for the first step. Identify one excess today. Just one. It could be an object you haven't used in years. It could be a subscription you forget you have. It could be a commitment that drains your energy. It could be a worry that leads nowhere. Identify it and remove it. Feel what it's like to have one less weight. Tomorrow, do it again, and the day after, and the next. In a month, you'll look back and won't believe how much weight you were carrying without realizing it. In 6 months, your life will be different. In a year, you'll be free in ways that today seem impossible. Not because you became a different person, because you removed the layers of excess that were hiding who you truly are. Philosophy challenges you. Abandon the excess. Not because it's easy, because it's wise, because it's the path to freedom, because in the end, when you're on your deathbed, you won't regret the things you didn't buy. You'll regret the life you didn't live while you were busy accumulating things and fulfilling empty obligations. If this video touched you in some way, if something here made sense, don't just let it pass. Subscribe to the channel to continue this journey of ancient wisdom applied to modern life. Leave your like so that more people discover there's another path beyond the rat race. And most importantly, take one idea from here, just one, and apply it today. Not tomorrow today, because philosophy would tell you, either you act now or you're just passing time. And time is the only thing you can't get back.